Good evening, everybody. I'm a little bit late, or actually a lot. We were supposed to start at 7:30, but excuse me. I left my grill on and didn't put the food on like I expected to. So it's going to be a late night chilling, right? Anyway, welcome to a value conversation, GenX spoken word. Oh, you know what? We're missing something. Let's get a little new music back here. All right, that's more like it. All right, so tonight's topic is going to be the continuation of Trump, DEI, division, extortion, intimidation. Let's go ahead and let the music set the mood for a moment, all right? Fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use. Damn, I still like that cut. All right, so I meant to do this show about a week ago, but some things got behind. I had to push it back for another show that was supposed to go on the same time that week. So I hope you don't mind here that the information might be a week or so behind, but it's still relevant because everyone is still being affected by it, are we not? So again, the title for tonight's show, continuation of Trump DEI, division, extortion, intimidation. That's the best way to put it now. If we look at everything that has gone on since Donald Trump's inauguration, this second administration that he's put together right now has run roughshod over every aspect that you would consider democracy to hold true and dear. I'd like to see someone deny that, but of course, you know his camp will. There's nothing that Donald Trump is doing that is wrong right now. No one has an issue with this, considering the fact that our president is an actual felon. So therefore, why should we be surprised if he's doing things that felons do, right? Why should we be surprised? But enough of that, let's go ahead and roll through this. So my council members may not be able to make tonight, so it might be just myself, so deal with it. And we need no audio tonight. All right, so getting right into this. For anyone who may be watching out in the clouds, by all means, if you want to, please drop some information inside of the chat. If you drop some information there, we can have the conversation, or you'll just listen to me drone on for most of the evening, all right? So the choice is yours. Getting into this, ICE. So we've seen that ICE has been hanging out at court dates, whereas the judge may push information aside. Ooh, hey, auntie. Just to let you know, I haven't forgotten that I need to swing by and get some food here, all right? So I'll give you a call, if not after the show, sometime tomorrow, just so I can get this set up. So as I was saying here, we know ICE has been picking people up at their appointments to where the judges have been delaying them or pushing them off or actually dropping them altogether, to which ICE will take people into custody right then and there and get them hemmed up so they can deport them from the country. A lot of people don't seem to understand that ICE is getting ready now to have a full influx of new recruits. Now, the problem with this is the same thing that you see when people want to be police officers, but end up being Paul Blart Mall Cop. They don't have the right aptitude. Their attitude is incorrect. They're joining for the wrong reasons, all of that. So what happens now when you tell people who normally would not bother joining ICE, but now you're going to tell them, if you want to join ICE, we have a $50,000 sign-up bonus. Here, let me share this with you. Yes, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is offering a maximum $50,000 signing bonus as part of a recruitment drive. This incentive is part of a broader package of benefits, including, get this, student loan repayment and forgiveness options, overtime pay for certain roles, and enhanced retirement benefits. The agency is seeking to hire 10,000 new agents. Now, didn't they just get through taking away student loan repayment from all the people for the last 8-10 years or whatnot who've been looking for student loan deferment? Some people have gotten it, some have not. But I swear they just took that away, didn't they? Now, all of a sudden, they've got cash to where they can not only give you a $50,000 sign-up bonus, but whatever loan repayment that you needed that was taken away, you can get it back if you work for ICE. Now, that's nothing more than an own to live move if I ever saw one. So you know you're struggling, you're having student debt just drop your head into the dust or into the dirt like an ostrich. You're trying to get your way out of it. And then all of a sudden, hey, guy, you know what? I can still help you out with student loans, but you got to join ICE and get rid of these criminals that we have in America. No, there was a situation similar to that when I was working back in North Carolina about a decade or so ago. So the situation was this. The company that I was working with had just bid with the incumbent. I think it was the General Dynamics. Well, nonetheless, I forget the name now, but nonetheless, the new contract owner, after they won the contract, came in and said to certain people in the following manner. So, hey, we'll just call the guy Paul. So, hey, Paul, so I see that you're making about 75,000 here. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good here, but I'd like to make 85,000. Oh, okay, I understand that. So your job now is only worth $50,000. Like, wait a minute, that's not a pay cut. That's a lifestyle change. Well, yes, it may be, Paul, but this is what we're offering for the job. So within a week or so, Paul finds another job and he leaves. So this same person, who is now the owner of the contract, goes into the data center and he walks up to somebody else who's earning, let's say maybe about 40,000. Actually, I'm sorry, 35,000. So the person inside the data center who's answering phone calls, just dealing with the customers who calls in, says, hi, how are you? The guy says, hey, I'm doing fine. I was actually coming to see you. So they're in the back and you can hear them talking. He says, well, so what are you making right about now? How are you doing here? He said, I'm doing fine. I'm making about 35, but I'd like to make 40. He said, really? Okay, well, your job is only worth $30,000 now. I said, wait a minute, I can't survive on that. Then he says, hey, Paul just left. If you want, his job is for 50 grand. How raggedy is that? So they still managed to keep themselves under a budget they wanted so they could keep a lot of the money that the contract was bid on. So they had underbid by about $15 million to win the contract. But after getting in the position, they realized that, oh, shit, pardon my language, we still need to do some work here. We're still not going to be able to sustain the contract this way because all the people who had the knowledge have left because they were undercut. Yes, corporate America. Let me do this. Let me turn the comments on. So I'm going to turn the comments on, folks, here on stage. So right here in the bottom corner somewhere, you should see the comments show up if they're going to, for the most part. I don't use this function too often, but let's just see what happens. But nonetheless, yes, you have that shucking and jiving that goes on when folks are trying to maintain money in the contract. They'll come in underbid thinking that they're going to be able to keep a majority of the money. But then when the operational expense fully hits them, it's like, oh, snap. What do we need to do? The people that we need to float the boat are all gone. So now they literally have to go back out and try and rehire those folks that they were shorting. So if they're short about maybe 15 to 20 folks, you can guarantee maybe at best 5 of them will get the pay that they were looking for. Others will stay gone, or what they will do is rely on the 5 people who are the core knowledge to train whoever else comes in to replace the folks who were pushed off because they got undercut. Excuse me for a second. This watch is killing me banging on this desk. All right, moving along. So this came out shortly right after it was announced that, hey, we're going to have more ICE agents on the street with a $50,000 signing bonus. DHS's new ICE recruitment strategy, $50K signing bonuses, student loan forgiveness, and Trump posters. Something to put in the wall in the back of the house or something like that. The Department of Homeland Security is offering new immigration and customs enforcement recruitment signing bonuses up to $50,000 and student loan forgiveness as the agency, suddenly flush with cash, seeks to meet President Donald Trump's goal of hiring 10,000 new ICE agents and deporting 1 million people a year. 1 million people a year. So it just sounds like some type of factory where they make tuna fish or something like that, right? But think about this. Where do you think all this money came from? So what Donald Trump has done through his lackeys, they've killed cancer research for children, dementia research, Alzheimer's research. But let's not also forget here all the programs that were already in place where the money was paid and already going out that they managed to pull back, something that should have never been allowed. So let's think about U.S. aid, where that money was pulled back. Then let's also think about the law firms where the intimidation tactic went down to where they cut their security clearances. And then on top of that, told them that if you want this back, then you need to do pro bono work for us, therefore getting $200 million worth of free labor from these organizations or these law firms. Let's not also forget about the grants that are supposed to go to colleges. Dartmouth, Princeton, Harvard, you name it. I think Columbia was one of those that was hit by this also, but a few of those, I think, lodged complaints, whereas they were able to win the lawsuit. Now, don't quote me on that directly. I have to go back. I just know in the last week or so, there have been some of these colleges and law firms that Trump, for the most part, ransacked that were able to win their lawsuits against Trump. We'll cover that probably in a different show, or maybe I'll do a short or a quick message video that'll be pre-recorded and I'll discuss that. But again, Trump killed a lot of programs that now he's got money. So what's the first thing he does with it? Almost the only thing that he does with it. I'm going to go ahead and use this money to protect our country and our border. And we're going to put in more ICE agents and we're going to pay them a whole lot of money. 50 grand signing bonus. Now, again, I just mentioned that you have people without the right aptitude, the right attitude, and just generally wrong for the job altogether who need money. Now, let's not also push aside the people who are drowning in debt from student loan forgiveness. Remember, ICE agents now have student loan forgiveness that everybody else who actually went to college at the time who weren't looking at being ICE agents had it stripped away from them. So do you think you might get some new ICE agents who have college debt, who had no desire to be an ICE agent, but probably might do it only because they need that student debt relief? How insane is that? With the help of major funding from the mega bill Trump signed into law this month, the big, beautiful bill, DHS on Tuesday, again, this is about a week behind, launched a new ICE campaign titled Defend the Homeland, with recruitment posters featuring Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, along with pay benefits aimed at drawing the next generation of law enforcement professionals to, get this, find, arrest, and remove criminal illegal aliens. Now, doesn't that just sound like absolute bias? Well, it is. It's bigotry, it's racism, and because of the fact folks did not get off their asses and vote, like many of us were saying almost a year prior, this is what's become of that. We have literally made bigotry, racism legal. Or if it's not, you see Donald Trump is changing the rules as best as possible so he's able to implement this to where folks can say, this is not racism, this is policy. The funding from President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill will play a key role in fulfilling his promise to the American people to deport criminal illegal aliens, White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said in a statement. Now, it just pisses me off looking at this, how everything that was put in place for the last 60 years, EEOC, DEI, affirmative action, Rainbow Coalition, Operation Push, Civil Rights Division, has now been bastardized for the most part. It's now been turned into some type of strike force that they're misusing based or not based on the principle that was put there to afford rights and privileges for those looking to have an equal standing in the country. Again, all that has been for the most part diminished at this time due to lack of inaction of people at the ballot box. But keep this in mind as we go through the show here and I bring up other bits of information. So I'm going to skip down to something. I want you to hear this. Listen to this. Your country is calling you to serve at ICE. In the wake of the Biden administration's failed immigration policies, your country needs dedicated men and women of ICE to get the worst of the worst criminals out of our country, Noem said in DHS Tuesday press release. This is a defining moment in our nation's history. Your skills, your experience, and your courage have never been more essential. Together, we must defend the homeland. Auntie, if you're still here, forgive my language, but do y'all hear this bullshit, people? We must defend the homeland. There's so much wrong with that statement. But let's just go back to this one part here. I just need to put this out here one more time here. To get the worst of the worst criminals out of our country. Hell, most of them were born here. A few of them have positions inside of this current administration. There was an article that I was reading before the show started that Donald Trump was complaining about the Smithsonian, saying that, oh, why are we talking about slavery? And it makes the country sound bad because it actually happened. But then he had the gall, American exceptionalism. I believe that's what he called it, American exceptionalism. Okay, so let's think about this. American exceptionalism equals MAGA mediocrity. And why do I say this? Because if you've forgotten, folks, at least 22 members of Trump's current cabinet lost their race trying to get into government. No one wanted them. No one voted for them. So because of the fact that they would be feckless and they would do exactly what Trump needed as far as loyalty, he made them a part of his administration. But then he turns around and tries to say that we need to encourage American exceptionalism, where he actually has DEI working for him. Didn't earn it. I got to wear the curse word in front of my aunt. So yes, American exceptionalism he talks about. Yeah, DEI hires under the term they tried to use it for. Didn't earn it. Hence why I say Trump DEI. Division, extortion, intimidation. Keep that in mind the next time you get into it, folks, or if you just happen to hear someone talking about DEI. Use that acronym and see what type of response you get. Now, if that's bad enough, Trump isn't out here showing his ass. I'm already there, Auntie. Trump is out here showing his ass talking about, oh, we got money to give, we're flush with cash. Now look what we're talking about. He's talking about giving people rebate checks. Now, where do you think that money's going to come from? It's the same money that he picked everybody's pockets for right now. Remember, he killed children's cancer research, dementia research, Alzheimer's research, USAID, money that he's collecting from federal grants that he took from colleges that would not pretty much enforce his DEI policies. This dude has got over 40-something billion dollars worth of cash back in his pocket that he has illegally pilfered, that he's now just distributing for these programs to bring more folks on who have no business being ICE agents. Or we know there's going to be kickbacks. There's going to be money. Well, let me take that back. We know that the money is not going to be utilized for what it was intended to be utilized for. I'll leave it like that. But when we talk about flush and cash, we know where this money came from. All the programs that were in place that Trump ransacked, that never should have been touched, that people told folks about, that Project 2025 was going to do this, and they're running right down the line with it. But I digress. President Trump on Friday said he's considering issuing rebate checks for Americans based on the billions in new tariff revenue collected by his administration. The billions that he's got is not primarily tariff money. Now, in addition to some of this tariff money that's going to be coming in here, eventually when the companies or the importing companies stop eating the cost and put it down on the consumer, when that comes, though, there's more money for him. But in the interest of time, cancer research, USAID, law firms that have been extorted, as well as colleges. That's where a majority of this money is coming from right now, folks. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we've got the big, beautiful bill that he says is going to be great for the country. But we're thinking about a rebate. Mr. Trump said in comments to reporters before he left for a 4-day visit to Scotland. Again, this is about a week or so old. Federal debt, which currently stands at more than $36 trillion, is projected to rise due to the new tax cuts and spending bills signed into law by Mr. Trump on July 4th, according to forecasts from economists and public policy think tanks. The nation's deficit could rise by $3.4 trillion over the next 10 years because of the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Bipartisan Policy Center said, citing estimates from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office and Joint Committee on Taxation. Mr. Trump added that the rebate could be for people of a certain income level, although he didn't specify the threshold that he's considering. So as always, you hear Trump about, well, we're considering this for people that have a certain rate. I'm not going to tell you yet, but wait 2 weeks. What's that thing he normally says? Give it about 2 weeks and we'll have something for you. Never did. No infrastructure, no affordable health care replacement, nothing. All that, well, give me 2 weeks and nothing was to come of it. So why would this be any different, right? Right. Now, if it's not bad enough that he's pulling in money from everybody who he's threatened, he's intimidated, he's extorted, now he's giving the authority for people to make the call who have nothing really to do with it. Trump signs order giving political appointees oversight of federal grants. So not only is the money being pulled out of your pockets that has already been allotted, people who've got nothing to do with the process, Trump is now giving them access. He is now appointing them to be able to decide where that grant money goes that he stopped from going to colleges that have always received their grants. Now you have got Trump sycophants who are going to decide whether or not you get to get grant money based upon whether or not you're supporting Trump's initiatives, which we know are biased. President Trump on Thursday signed an executive order tightening control of the federal grant funding process, requiring political appointees to sign off on each grant. The order directs each agency head to designate a senior appointee who will be responsible for creating a process to review grant opportunity announcements and to ensure any grants awarded are consistent with agency priorities and the national interest. In short, there is a strong need to strengthen oversight and coordination of and to streamline agency grant making to address these problems, prevent them from reoccurring, and ensure greater accountability for use of public funds. More broadly, the order states, the government holds tax review in trust for the American people, and agencies should treat it accordingly. Now, again, think about this. They hold tax revenue in trust, but the person who is sitting in the Oval Office either hasn't paid taxes, or if he did pay taxes, he didn't pay what he was supposed to. And for the most part, remember, he hid it for almost 3 years until someone finally got a hold of his tax information, showing that he was cheating on his taxes. But sure, the government holds tax revenue in trust. Can't make this up. I could lie about it, but why bother? It's right here in front of you. So in looking at that, we have seen what's happened here in America in almost 6 months or less. We'll see almost 4 months down to 2. Donald Trump has made a mess of the immigration standards. He has revised policies that's been in place for decades for diversity, equity, inclusion. He's claimed that Black history is now divisive, revisionist. And on top of that, just basically claim that it's untrue. He's literally saying that, oh, that history is either a lie or they're just telling the bad parts. Why can't we just look at the exceptionalism of America? They're telling all the bad parts, and we need to stop that. They need to speak about all the good things that America offers. But remember, his version of America subscribes to that of the Daughters of the Confederacy. Now, the Daughters of the Confederacy, I keep having to bring this back up because a lot of people seem to forget this. They were in the losing camp. Now, we've always heard that the victor writes history. Well, during this time period, the losers got hold of the ability to write history. And as a result, they wrote it in a manner that we saw a lot of that helping to foment the racism we've seen throughout the years since the Civil War up until now. As I said before, around 1909, 1910, we saw publishers who were publishing the lost cause narrative of the Confederacy. Pretty much just tears and everything, complaining about how the North had bullied the South and the war was all about states' rights, but not slavery, which we know is a lie. But the body of the Confederacy, and that's what I keep telling people right now, we are squaring off with the new Confederacy, or dare I say the same Confederacy, because they have been playing the long game for almost 110 plus years. They have been playing the long game from the giddy up. And it has paid off. Now, I'll speak about some of the things that have allowed them to get this far in their practices. Just a moment here. But the statement here, Donald Trump is about to do to Europe what he's been doing to America, which is running roughshod over legal policies. We're actually watching legitimate legal precedents being used to hide his illegalities and prevent him from facing accountability. That's all that's happening. We're watching, what's the word that I'm looking for right now? Immunity that was created to get him out of his 34 counts, if you recall that last year. Donald Trump was dead to rights. But if it weren't for the fact that the Supreme Court justices created immunity for him in order for him to walk away, to include also making a statement that the special counsel was illegally appointed, although that same special counsel was appointed just like the special counsel who was appointed to pretty much cover Biden's. I'm having a lot of moments here. Jeez, what was it? There we go. Forgive me, I'm back. For the part to whereas Biden supposedly had illegal, or not illegal, but he had classified that he had accidentally taken home with him as well. So because of that, he was being investigated. Both of these special counsels, Robert Hur, who was appointed to investigate Biden, Jack Smith, appointed to investigate Trump, both of them were appointed by the same Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Or did anyone forget that? But be that as it may, why is it that only Jack Smith was considered to be illegally appointed when both men were appointed by the same Attorney General? Don't think I didn't call into Washington, calling, sending emails, never heard anything back. But go back and think that one over, folks. But nonetheless, because of the fact that level of immunity that was created for Donald Trump was put in place, and Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the case against Trump because, oh, he was legally appointed, we are seeing everything that we're seeing right now as a result. She held that door open for almost 6 or 7 months, hoping that somebody from the Federalist Society would come through with a way to bail out Donald Trump. And the gamble played off. So, hence, Donald Trump is about to do to Europe what he's been doing to America. So also, let's keep in mind, folks, I may see people come up here that may drop off depending upon the conversation that's being had. I'm okay with that. The replay gang will be able to take this for themselves and watch it and see what comes up and make their own assertions. But again, I never come up here and speak to anything that I cannot prove. Facts do not choose sides. So far in his second term, Donald Trump has focused chiefly on destroying democracy here at home, except with respect to tariffs, the larger world generally, and Europe specifically. He has been spared his depraved intercessions. That ends this week when he meets Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and much like Hyman Roth and Michael Corleone in The Godfather Part 2, they start slicing up their little pieces of the Ukraine birthday cake, which is what's to be expected here. Now, we know going forward now that nothing came of the meeting, but this, as I said before, is about a week old. So it's going to still be looking at it from the standpoint of that the meeting has not taken place. But the idea, as we all know, is that without Zelensky being there, Trump is going to have a conversation with Putin about, yeah, you can go ahead and take this and, we'll cut this, we'll share this. And I'll tell Zelensky, hey, you're just going to have to deal with this, but here's what's going to happen. So you're going to cut up the man's company and not even have him at, country, and not even have Zelensky at the table as you attempt to do this. At least that was the pretense last week. So let's just skip down here. With Trump, alas, we need to learn to flush all the highfalutin argle-bargle down the gold-plated toilet. He looks at the world the way a middling primate looks at the various trees of the jungle: fruit good, poison bad. And here, with respect to the Ukraine situation, are our president's 3 simian instincts. Europe bad. They're a bunch of commies and sissies and haven't done anything good for the world in centuries, as Randy Newman once sang in jest. Asia's crowded, Europe's too old. And most of all, of course, they're ripping us off, which gets down to how Trump really sees the world. It's divided into shysters and shystees. He says he wants them to pay their fair share of the mutual defense tab, but deep down, he surely expects and hopes that they won't, and he can be justified in forcing America from this deep state entanglement. So we saw it when his first term came about, where he said, oh, you guys aren't paying your fair share. There was nothing of any sort of addendum that stated how much money was to be paid. There was nothing written as an expectation. But of course, he pushed it the first term and he came back and he's doing it again. Number 2, Putin good. Yes, he's been bad-mouthing Putin a lot lately. It's been one of those pass the popcorn moments that's been fun to watch. But when you get down to it, he's on Putin's side for very simple and obvious reasons. Putin's tough. He knocks heads. He knows how to deal with political opponents. They get disappeared. Trump's bro love for Vlad is made palpably evident by the very fact that Trump has invited him to the United States for this 2-way, that is conspicuously not 3-way, excluding, as it does, Volodymyr Zelensky, as I stated, summit. And not just any United States, Alaska, the state that was Russia before it was America. One of Putin's oligarchs crowed last week that Alaskans respectfully remember their Russian past and their Orthodox present. Please. And number 3, Ukraine weak. Yes, they put up a pretty good fight for these last 3 years, but at the end of the day, it's a tiny country with a tiny army that's eventually going to get overwhelmed. In addition, while Trump obviously hasn't read any of the relevant history, someone who has read it has probably explained to him that Ukraine has been sliced and diced over the centuries by lots of people, even by Franklin Roosevelt, who, with Winston Churchill at Yalta, let Stalin take a goodly chunk of what was then Poland and call it Ukraine, thus making it part of the Soviet Union. The Ukrainian city of Lviv was, until 1946, the Polish city of Lov. But hey, nothing wrong with that, because that's how the world works, bub. The big dogs run the kennel, always have, always will. So as we look at the whole process here of how Trump goes about having these meetings, you're going to see a familiar tune. Now, remember when we were pulling out of Afghanistan? Does anybody remember that? If you do, put it in the chat. If you don't, I'll go ahead and explain this. When we were coming out of Afghanistan, remember that Donald Trump made a deal with the Taliban, but he didn't invite the Afghanistan president, and this is all about his own country. This is the same thing all over again. Donald Trump is about making concessions. That's all he's about doing. And he's not going to allow the person who's going to have to take it in the shorts be a part of it. He doesn't want the distraction. Let me talk to the person who is going to cut up this country with me, and then we'll just tell whoever owns the country, yup, hey, just deal with it. This is what you're going to have to do. You have no choice. Yes, exactly, which Biden had to uphold. Trump made the agreement, so Biden went through with the plan. So if anyone ever complains to you about Afghanistan, all you have to do is tell them it was Trump's plan. He made the plan without Afghanistan being a part of it, and Biden had to stick to it because that's what was agreed upon. All these little truths here, they get by, folks. I'm going to drop a few pre-recorded sessions here. I'm going to go back and take a look at some things that have gotten under the radar that people seem to have forgotten. One of the main things is that Donald Trump was convicted, or I won't say convicted, but he was found to have committed insurrection. Yes, I'm not talking about the sham that went on inside of Congress, or where would be impeachments, I should say, where the Republicans just let him get away with it. Not once, but he got away with impeachment twice. But I'm talking about he was legitimately in Colorado found to have committed insurrection, and that is on the books. But we don't hear that discussed a lot. I'll go back and put another video together and just show how these little things that we just seem to forget here do not seem to bother anyone when we look at what's happening right now. But excuse the rant. Let's keep on moving. So what are we doing? Come back. There we go. All right, so how did all this happen? What made it possible? A stolen seat. Now, who recalls when Obama had nominated Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court? Merrick Garland. Who recalls that? All of a sudden, there's this rule that, well, nope, the next president should be the person who appoints the next Supreme Court justice. And they didn't even hold any type of programs, or what do you call that, or meetings to allow this to take place. President Trump was only able to nominate Judge Neil. Let me back up here. Yeah, here we go. President Trump was only able to nominate Judge Neil Gorsuch to replace the late Justice Anton Scalia because the Republican-led Senate refused to consider Obama's nominee for the post last year. Now, by the way, I just want you to know here that this is from February 2017. Obama nominated Judge Merrick Garland on March 16th, but Republican senators refused to hold confirmation hearings for months. Many are now calling Gorsuch's nomination a stolen seat. For more, we speak with Ian Millshauser, Senior Fellow at the Center for American Progress Action Fund and Justice Editor of Think Progress. We also speak with Nan Aaron, President of the Alliance for Justice. Yep, I do. Mitch McConnell had a lot to do with the obstruction. Yes, he did. Now, rather than me go through this, we'll just get down to the element of this. Let me go ahead and give everyone a recap. But again, I always make sure that the information is here if you'd like to go see it for yourself. And I do believe for the first or second time, I've gone ahead and included the information inside of the description below the video. So take a look at that and you'll have the links to everything that you see up here. If I'm missing that, let me know and I'll go ahead and make that information available. So again, if we remember, the Republicans said that no, Obama, this is your last term in office and you're not going to be the person to appoint the Supreme Court justice. It should be the next president. So lo and behold, 11 months, now keep this in mind now, 11 months, or 10 or 11 months before the next presidential election, they stymied the seat. They held no hearings, and as was just stated in the article, Neil Gorsuch got the seat. Now, as soon as Neil Gorsuch had the seat, they have another nomination process, and Brett Kavanaugh, although it's been brought up that he had a rapey past, he gets through the gauntlet. So we've got two justices. One that was the major turning point, the theft of Merrick Garland's seat, which is just conversation at this point. There's nothing that can be said to get it back. But through that one seat, they got 3 seats or 2 more seats, a total of 3 here. So again, you had Gorsuch who got in off the seat that was stolen from Obama. That made way for Brett to make it through. So you got Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and somewhere along the way, the discussion starts coming up about what do we do just in case Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. So RBG has had her cancer scares. You know, she fell, I believe, once or twice, but she appeared to be doing fine. But the conversation came up, what do we do if she passes? So recall McConnell saying, we're going to fill it. But you had Lindsey Graham saying, no, we are not going to fill that. We made a promise. We made a statement that the next president should be the person to fill the seat. And he gave his word that they were not going to fill this seat. Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And what do? Within 10 days of the election, within the last 30 days or so, but I want to say it was close to within 10 days of the election, they put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, completely blowing up the precedents that they created in order to steal the seat from Obama. So this thing I hear when people say that when they go low, we go high. Forgive me, folks, but stop this shit. All right? Enough. You can't have that type of mentality with folks who don't respect principle. What am I talking about, principle? Well, let's continue on in this conversation. So they push Amy Coney Barrett through. So now they've got 3 justices. All right. So we have got a serious tilt going on now at the Supreme Court, 6-3. And then as soon as they get them in there, what do all sneakily? Somebody lets it slip that they're trying to overturn Roe versus Wade now that they've got enough of the court in their favor. Again, 6-3. Everybody everybody remember that shock that everyone had. Wait, what are you doing? This is a precedent. Remember, I said the long game, and that's what this has been. Conservatives have been playing the long game forever, and it worked out right for them. So there was no surprise, although Lindsey Graham said that, oh, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. We are not going to fill that seat. They filled the seat. So with the brand new Supreme Court justices that came in, 3 in their favor now. So what you have is this tilt that is now always going to weigh in Donald Trump's favor, depending upon what type of mood or what type of personal intrinsic value one of them has for a vote. So we see them overturn Roe versus Wade. We've seen now what's happening with education. The Department of Education pretty much was getting slashed, but I believe about a week ago, well, not even a week ago, but about 3 or 4 days ago, maybe 5, a judge said, no, you would not burn this to the ground, luckily enough. But with all this extra edge you have with the imbalance, Donald Trump is getting everything that he's looking for now, and there's no one really pushing back. And this all started with this stolen seat. So speaking of this, let's go back and have a look at what Mitch McConnell had to say about that. Just hours after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death on Friday. Again, we're going back in time here, folks. This article is from September 19th, 2020. Just hours after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death on Friday, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said President Trump's nominee to replace her will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. But 4 years ago, when Justice Anton Scalia died in an election year, McConnell repeatedly argued against even holding a hearing for a replacement. The Kentucky Republican notoriously refused to hold a hearing for Merrick Garland, who then President Barack Obama chose to fill Scalia's seat 8 months before the election. My apologies. I think I said 10 or 11, right? Well, it was 8. McConnell's bloc left the Supreme Court with an empty scarf for more than a year until Mr. Trump's nominee, Neil Gorsuch, was sworn in. In 2016, McConnell consistently made one argument for not filling the seat. It was an election year and voters should decide which presidential candidate should pick the next justice. Did I not just say that? Other Senate Republicans followed suit. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said weeks after Scalia's death, I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make the nomination. And here is the statement that he made, and I believe this is from Twitter. I remember looking at the news clip of him saying this. There were some differences between now and then. Mr. Obama was in the final year of his presidency, whereas President Trump has a chance for a second term. And Obama was a Democrat, while the Senate that needed to confirm his nominee was controlled by the GOP. McConnell at times pointed to both of these facts when refusing to give Garland a hearing, but he also consistently argued that the people of the United States should decide to fill the court's vacancy, an argument he isn't making now. Here's what McConnell said in 2016. February 13th, statement on the day of Scalia's death. The American people should have a voice in the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. February 16th, Washington Post op-ed with Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Given that we are in the midst of the presidential election process, we believe that the American people should seize the opportunity to weigh in on whom they trust to nominate the next person for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. It is today the American people, rather than a lame duck president whose priorities and policies they just rejected in the most recent national election, who should be afforded the opportunity to replace Justice Scalia. And so then we just go down the whole process of everyone just tit for tat, back and forth, back and forth. But again, this is the past, folks. We know what happened with this. We know that Donald Trump was able to have his choices met because of McConnell's theft. But think about this now. You hardly hear anything from Mitch McConnell, except last year where he had a couple of freezing incidents. But most people seem to forget that it was Mitch McConnell that made this possible of what's going on right now in our country. He is the one who cleared the path for Donald Trump by stealing the seat. But nowhere on anybody's tongue do you hear Mitch McConnell's name coming up. So if anyone is watching this live stream right now, make sure if you get the chance to download it, do so. If you can't download it, I'll put it someplace where you can so you can remember this commentary. Also, make sure any and everything on the internet that you are reviewing or that you would like to keep as a fact, make sure you hit Control and S. This is something that I shared in one of the previous live streams. What that does is it allows you to preserve or save that particular web page, at least the MHTML or the HTML writing. That's pretty much what I'm doing right now. All the pages that we're using here are pages that I saved. Reason being, I went back a couple of weeks ago to look at information that had already gone past that was being argued previously in defense of Trump's actions, and that information had been changed. While we're looking at everything that's going on in DC, we're looking at ICE, we're looking at the intimidation of colleges, law firms. I shouldn't say someone, but the Trump administration has had people going back to articles that did not favor Trump, and they are being changed. That's going to be a quick video that I'll do for folks this week. All right. Let me see if I can go back and find the article, because I keep damn near everything now that I come across, knowing that this is what's happening. There's information that is being changed on the fly in the background. So if anyone were to make any reference to something regarding Donald Trump's actions, it's not going to be there anymore. So I need everyone to be vigilant and to consider whatever it is that you're looking for a reference on the internet. If it's something that you feel strongly about that proves a point, Control S. Make sure you save it, because the next time you go back, the possibility now exists that it's being changed. So let me do this. So we've pretty much gone through everything here, and all right, not bad for time here. We're coming up on an hour, but before we do, I really want to address something here, folks. Just a moment. Where are we? There we go. I really want to address what's happened here in the last week or so when we're looking at Trump sending in the National Guard in DC. Oh, something else. Now, if you ever run into a paywall and there's an article that you want to read, but you can't because, again, there's a paywall, just type in the name of the article inside of your, your search engine of choice. So Trump is taking over DC because he's a racist thug, and then add and Yahoo. And 10 times out of 10, Yahoo is already covering that same news source. So therefore, you get around the paywall. So I'm just going to let you know this little trick that I stumbled across here paying attention about a year or so ago. But if you didn't know about it, there it is. Very useful. Trump is taking over DC police because he's a racist thug. Their words, not mine. It's still possible, despite my daily exposure to horrific announcements from the Trump administration, for a White House press conference to make me sick with dread. On August 11th, the president announced that he was taking federal control of the police force in Washington, D.C., and deploying the National Guard to its streets. As has become routine, Trump attempted to give legitimacy to his entirely gratuitous actions with executive orders, one declaring a non-existent crime emergency in Washington, the other restoring law and order by directing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to activate the DC National Guard. As Trump's press concert meandered on, various cabinet members peppered their remarks with praise that Trump is saving the city, etc. Some blocks away at Lafayette Square, residents of our nation's capital protested the coming occupation of the district. While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, said DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, we're totally surprised. In the response to his takeover of Washington's law enforcement, there has been a tendency to hit back with fact checks. New stories cite statistics showing that crime in DC is at a record lows. There's no evidence contrary to Trump's claims that caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets at all times of the day. However, as a political response to such lies or to Trump's invocation of violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth and drugged out maniacs, along with other racist tropes that he regularly invokes, crime numbers alone are inadequate. Unite the blundering theater of the White House press room and the careless bombast of the executive orders is a deeper story. Today, Trump has claimed the power to take over an American city, casting the city's leadership as inept and its police as powerless because of woke, which is another way of saying because the right white people are not in charge. So yes, Donald Trump made statements such as the crime rate in DC was higher than, I think, Bogota, but I think that's going to be in the next clip here, or at least one of the next couple of tabs here. But nonetheless, this is the same thing we dealt with if we go back to 2018. Now, as I said before, every 2 years, there is some type of crisis that gets manufactured. So who remembers in 2018 what the crisis was? The crisis was the migrant caravan. But here's something else I think a lot of people have forgotten about 2018. Does anybody still remember, if you're still with me, who remembers where Trump shut the government down for 35 days because he was trying to, or literally did I say, he was extorting the government for money to build that damn wall that never got built to the specifications that he stated? Who was affected by that 35-day shutdown? And Trump proved that he didn't give a damn about the country. He didn't give a damn about people. His thing is either it's my way or I will force you to do it my way. And lo and behold, funny enough, it was Mitch McConnell that said, okay, Mr. President, enough. Well, you got to stop this. And I remember, I think Nancy Pelosi was still in charge at the time. She actually did a bit of a deal that gave him some money, but not all the money he wanted. But that is how far that Trump was willing to go. So if anybody forgets, 2018, I want to say it was, Trump shut the country down for 35 days, even though he'd already gone through the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Army Corps of Engineers. He had ransacked everybody's budget to get money to pay for that damn wall. So again, 2018, the crisis was the migrant caravan. In 2020, the crisis was COVID, as you recall. But the problem that made it a crisis, not that COVID occurred, but it was the issue of him acting like it didn't exist. Oh, it's not real. It'll go away. Don't worry about it. It's not dangerous. The entire time knowing and saying behind the scenes that he supposedly knew how dangerous it was. 400,000 people dead because of that lie and vaccine hesitancy before the Biden administration took over. Even though I will say the one good thing that Trump talked about and put in place was Operation Warp Speed. Then you have people who won't even use the vaccine to a degree. So now we have the vaccine denial that started, vaccine hesitancy, and we have the anti-vaxxers. All that crap started again because of Trump and his sycophants. So what now was the issue in 2022? What was the issue in 2022? Anybody remember? Bueller? If you recall, now we were talking about, I'm having a brain fart. What was they were playing that, it was in Skool. Hold on for a second. I cannot believe I'm having this brain fart, AKA cranial flatulence. Critical race theory. That's what I'm thinking of. So remember, in 2022, the new crisis was critical race theory. Now, I want you to think about this, folks. After every election, whatever the problem supposedly that was in place gets quickly thrown off to the side. But the thing here is that we've got to get people into some type of fever pitch so they have that on their minds when they go to the ballot box. So in 2018, remember, it's the migrant caravan. along with Trump shutting down the government to get walls, to get money to build his wall to supposedly stop things like the migrant caravan. In 2020, it was COVID. In 2022, it was critical race theory. And then the crisis that was in 2024, we had two of them. Kamala Harris supposedly wasn't black. And then immigrants were eating people's house pets. Keep that in mind, folks. Yes, that's what was going on. That was the crisis for 2024. Kamala Harris supposedly not being black, but we know she's black. Matter of fact, I've done a couple of videos, and recently I put out a 5-minute takedown of some of the lies that were being put out here by the same black conservatives, namely Candace Owens. Different video, but nonetheless, look for it. I'll make sure to either include that in the description here, or just make sure you subscribe, folks, and you'll be able to see the information for yourself firsthand when I release it. But again, Kamala Harris wasn't black, and immigrants were eating people's cats and other house pets, and even wild geese in parks. But notice, as soon as the election was over, did you hear any more about any of this? No, you didn't. It had served its purpose. So be wary of that, folks. So as I was saying, as we look through this, the stats didn't even support what Donald Trump was saying. It was just saying that in this article. Hell, even Kash Patel, is ketamine using, even Kash Patel accidentally made it known that they were having historic lows. FBI Director Kash Patel, who himself was a supporter of insurrection, even wrote the song for the J6 criminals that they were singing about supposedly being wrongfully detained, as Ed Martin tried to say, the equivalent of the Japanese internment back in World War II. All of this misattributions, mischaracterizations. FBI Director Kash Patel admits that the murder rate in America is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, undercutting President Donald Trump's depiction of major cities as crime-riddled hellscapes. The president on Monday unveiled plans to deploy the National Guard and take over the Metropolitan Police in order to rescue Washington, D.C. from what he said was an existence of crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor. You know, there's no need for me to continue down on it because we know that it was a lie. Like I said, this information is about a week old, but it was a lie. And even Kash Patel, in his ignorance, which helped us, being those folks who are law-abiding, even in his accident of making it known that the murder rate wasn't as high as it was, Trump still went forward with deploying the National Guard. Now, you knew he was going to do that, right? There was no ifs, ands, or buts. It was going to happen. So here goes my other aspect of what I do on this platform. All right. I do fact checking. I don't just try and take information from the popular message boards. I look for folks or organizations that are part of the National Fact Checking Organization, or NFC. These are bodies or places such as PolitiFact, Reuters, a few others that escape my mind right now, who belong to an agency where they check information that is put out. It is considered to be professionally reviewed, peer-reviewed information. So when you get the facts, they are corroborated and they are correlated. How does Washington, D.C.'s homicide rate compare with other countries? So if you were someone who was just ripping through this as fast as possible, here's the cliff notes. The chart President Trump displayed during an August 11th of this year news conference included 2023 data for Washington, D.C. homicides. Since then, the district's homicide rate has fallen considerably. The rate was not the worst in the world, then or now. President Donald Trump said Washington, D.C.'s homicide rate is higher than the worst places on earth. Again, that's a damn lie. at an August 11th press conference announcing a federal government takeover of the district's Metropolitan Police Department and the deployment of the National Guard troops to the nation's capital, Trump displayed several charts comparing DC's homicide rate with cities around the world. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, Trump said. We have DC, 41 per 100,000. Number one that we can find anywhere in the world, Trump said, holding up a chart comparing homicide rates across capital cities. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. The chart Trump displayed was first shared August 6th on, of course, Fox News, The Will Cain Show. Trump didn't mention that data in it is from 2023. Since then, the district's homicide rate has fallen considerably. The rate was not the worst in the world then or now, as we said above. Now, I want to keep in mind here, folks, Fox News. Why would anyone still get information from a news agency that was sued for almost $1 billion for lying? And if they weren't lying, they were either misrepresenting the truth, inferring something to be the truth, or not clearing up that although not the truth, the inference is made, therefore telling people to do your own research. But still, accountability found them, which is why they settled before it went to court, and they lost their draws right in the middle of Main Street. So let's look at one particular aspect here where Trump tried to say that the crime rate was worse than what Bogota. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia. Then he threw in Mexico City. He's just pulling shit out of his ass, obviously. So I asked a question. Is it accurate to gauge? I don't know why it sounds like gauge or gaze here, but I said gauge. Is it accurate to gauge the murder rate of Bogota, Colombia with Washington or Washington, D.C.? And here's what I got back. No, it is not accurate to compare Washington, D.C.'s murder rate to Bogota, Colombia, solely based on the fact that Washington, D.C. has a higher murder rate. While Washington, D.C. has seen a recent decline in homicides, and Bogota has also seen a decrease in recent years, there are other factors to consider. Bogota, as a city in a developing country, may have a different context for crime and violence than Washington, D.C., a major city in the United States. Additionally, the comparison may not be relevant depending on the specific time frames being considered. And here's the information that, as was being stated, varies. Bogota, as the capital of Colombia, operates within a different legal, social, and economic landscape than Washington, D.C. Timeframes. While both cities have seen fluctuations in murder rates, a comparison based on a specific year or period might not accurately represent the long-term trends. Data accuracy. It's important to ensure the data used for comparison is accurate and reliable. Per capita rates. When comparing murder rates between cities, it's crucial to consider population size and calculate murder rates per capita. So if anyone wants to take a look at this on their own, I think, this is the streak that you want to use. I keep forgetting that this is a saved page. Is it accurate to gauge, not gaze, to gauge the murder rate of Bogota, Colombia with Washington, D.C.? This is what I put into the search menu, and this is the response that I got. Now, let's go one step further. Now, when you're telling lies, you're always going to have that one rag, or not just that one rag, but you're going to have multiple rag organizations that are going to mischaracterize, mislead, misattribute, and just pretty much lie about the information being presented. That is the Daily Mail, which is the rag of, or let's say they're the Fox News of Britain. I believe that's the best way to put the Daily Mail. You've got some others in competition, but the Daily Mail is primarily, I would say, the Fox News of Britain. Associated Press publishes anti-Trump fact check that admits president's most damaging DC claim is correct. Now, you just saw where it was stated that it was a lie that Donald Trump was telling. But again, this is a publication that is pro-Trump. on the other side of the water. The Associated Press has published a fact check appearing to substantiate Donald Trump's claim that the murder rate in Washington, D.C. is higher than that of both Bogota, Colombia, and Mexico City. The piece, titled Fact Focus, Trump Exaggerates, Misstates Facts on Washington Crime, comes after an impassioned press conference from the president that included the remark in question. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, he told onlookers. The administration, in turn, posted a chart to X comparing DC's murder rate to other cities around the world. The graphics show DC's murder rate at roughly 27%, Bogota at 15%, and Mexico City at 10%. Remember now, in the information that we just read before looking at this particular article, it stated that the information that Trump was using was from 2023, meaning that it was inaccurate. But of course, you will never hear him say that it's inaccurate. He will find anything and make the statement that, oh, this is accurate, this is what's happening, but he will be a year or two off or just outright lying. The AP piece conceded Washington is one of America's most dangerous big cities, but pointed to how the U.S. in general sees higher rates than many other countries. Okay, a lie again. The whole reason that I saved this particular article and did this piece last is I wanted to take a quick moment to contrast how easily people can be led into the damn oven and even turn it on themselves before pulling it up behind them, or at least asking assistants to be closed into the oven before they get roasted by their own decisions. Oh, what the lies, people. Anyway, again, Daily Mail. This information should be in the description below if you're interested in reading fully more about the article. Not that I think there's anything left. I think we covered the majority of it. Oh, let me do this. As far as credibility, I typed in the Daily Mail, bias and credibility. We'll go to that in just a second. But here's what I want you to see here. Can you trust the Daily Mail? Consensus has determined that the Daily Mail, including its online version, dailymail.co.uk, is generally unreliable, and its use as a reference to be generally prohibited, especially when other more reliable sources exist. Now, I don't recall how many folks happened to join a live stream I did almost 5 or 6 months ago, but the live stream that I did broke down how you could go about finding what is and what is not factual, or more or less shows a level of accountability in reporting their news and being factual. One of the places that I go to, one of four, is Media Bias Fact Check. But I was really, well, let me take this back. I wasn't really surprised. I was not surprised at all about what came from this, because this is a chart that they maintain to give you an idea of the source that you're quoting, or if you're going to use information from them, they're letting you know, hey, you might not want to do this depending on what you see. So what we see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 7 levels of reporting that determines your credibility. Factual reporting. All right, it's either very high, mostly factual, mixed. But when you hit low and very low, you get this rating of questionable source. Not to mention, it shows you where you are on the spectrum of extreme left, extreme right, versus least bias being centered. So as you can see right here, Daily Mail sits far on the right here. So they are not right centered. They're not sitting in between here. They are fully on the right, but they're not extremists like Fox News or Newsmax per se. Now, again, here's this rating of questionable source that I was just speaking of. A questionable source exhibits one or more of the following: extreme bias, consistent promotion of propaganda, conspiracies, poor or no sourcing of credible information, a complete lack of transparency, and or is fake news. Fake news is the deliberate attempt to publish hoaxes and or disinformation for profit or influence. Sources listed in the questionable category may be very untrustworthy and should be fact-checked on a per article basis. Please note, sources on this list are not considered fake news unless specifically written in the reasoning section for that source. See all questionable sources. Overall, we rate Daily Mail right biased and questionable due to numerous failed fact checks and poor information sourcing. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit further. But before we do, let's look at the detailed report. These cats are shit canned. Questionable reasoning, right, propaganda, conspiracy, some fake news, numerous failed fact checks, the bias rating, right. And when you look at the bias rating, I believe 7 is as far as you go to either side. So they're at 6.6 right now. Here, 6.6. Factual reporting, we saw that it was low. So it's from the United Kingdom. I remember seeing this on the street when I lived there. Actually, the last time that I lived there, when I worked in downtown London for about 4 years. You had people standing out on the street. L light, which was the London light, but you could also pick the Daily Mail up at one of the newsstands, or I want to say that they probably had places where you can buy the paper on the street as well. Or maybe I'm mixing that up with the US, but nonetheless, they are some liars. High traffic is popular because think of the National Enquirer. Dare I even say that they are close to the National Enquirer type of level. But overall credibility rating, low credibility. So there's a history, who does the funding, but the part that you really want to see is the fact check portion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They failed 8 fact checks, but I could take you to Fox News, Newsmax, or some of these other far right newspapers who get sued, but you could see failed fact checks straight down the line. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't see this with CNN occasionally, or maybe MSNBC, these type of left-leaning papers as well. You're going to see fact checks that are going to get failed. The question is how often and how many. All right, so I believe that does it here, 1 hour and 17. I kept it to a reasonable spot here tonight, so good on me, right? So what I will be doing is time stamping. So Alicia, who is not here with us right now, but aka Hunting Wisdom, she's been nice enough to help me with the time stamping bit. I've got to go back to the last live stream and take the information that she gave me so I can kind of time stamp this out. That way, if you don't want to sit here for the entire video, at least you'll be able to pick out what part you find to be of the most interesting point of the video to you. So I'll make sure to do that. Alicia, yeah, maybe I might take you up on some more time stamping. All right, well, not too many folks here tonight, but that's okay. As I've always said before, if I don't get a lot of folks live, I do know that I can find folks from the replay gang who'll pick it up and keep it pushing, all right? So last but not least, find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what I've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the information. I'm going to be getting a little more emboldened about what's going on in the world here because we see the administration around us is doing the same. All right. Thanks for checking in. I'll see everybody in the next video. Ooh, thank you, Auntie. I'm always here to bring the information. Remember, facts don't choose sides. All right. Take care, and I'll see everybody next time. Jon H.E.N.R.Y out.